What's up, everybody? I'm David Hain. Welcome to episode number 317 of the A2D From Addict to Disciple podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, please like, subscribe, follow, and share the link with your friends. If you'd like to get our curriculum, you can get the paperback or ebook of From Ashes to Destiny on Amazon. Today's episode, number 317, is entitled Shoshin, and Shoshin is a Japanese term that means beginner's mind. And I want to say right up front, I've had several people respond to me after earlier episodes that I did on Japanese philosophies, number 227, Kintsugi, and number 206, Ikigai, which both had lots of positive comments. But a couple of people said, David, why are you using these Japanese concepts? We don't have anything to learn from them. And so that's what this is all about. Do you have a beginner's mind or not in Shoshin? Are you open to finding a nugget in anything in every podcast episode? Or are you stuck in your ways? You see, I've met guys in rehabs, homeless shelters, prisons, AA, NA meetings who feel like experts. Whenever anybody comes with a new topic or a new idea, they sort of shut down and say, well, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. So even though they keep relapsing or maybe struggling every day in their recovery, they think they have all the answers and are not open to new ideas or even digging in to recovery in some new way. Well, as I looked into Shoshin, I was led to an article by James Clear, an American writer and speaker. And he asked these questions to begin an understanding of Shoshin. First, he said, who is to say that the way you originally learned something is the best way? You got that? And so that would be for those guys who are there, been there, done that. Who's to say that the way you originally learned something is the best way? And he follows that up by saying, what if you simply learned one way of doing things, not the way of doing things? And then he goes on to talk about sports and used an analogy of baseball and the coaches that you worked with in your sports. And he asked, who's to say that the way you originally learned a skill is the best way? What if the old way that worked for you is not the optimal way for you at the new level? So if you think of any sports you've been involved in or any athletes or any hobby or pastime that's become avid to you, you've always got something new to learn. And I think of sports, I'll use the baseball analogy that James Clear did. Even when someone goes through the minor leagues and makes it up to the major leagues, the coaches are still tweaking and adjusting their hitting stance, their style, where they hold the bat, what they do with their feet, how far apart they're spread. And they engage in activities to increase their fielding skills every day, every week. So who's to say that what you learned originally is the only way or the best way? Let's dig into this beginner's mindset of Shoshin a little deeper. What really makes it up? What am I actually talking about? Well, it starts first with an openness and curiosity. Are you willing to look at things with fresh eyes? Are you ready to acknowledge your assumptions and biases that you have from your experience in early life? The second point would be, do you have an eagerness to learn? Do you really desire to understand things more deeply? Or are you simply looking for a quick fix answer to what's going on today? The third aspect would involve a lack of preconceived notions. So those earlier biases and assumptions that I talked about, have they become preconceived notions in you, a belief system? And if so, how can you work to set that aside? I believe you have to set that aside because it's setting aside what you think you already know in order to be receptive to new ideas. So the picture for me is, if it's not just moving this from the front burners to the back burners on the stovetop, it's taking it off the stove and saying, Yet, as long as I'm keeping it warm, it's probably stuck in my belief system. So let me move it aside so I can maybe find a new nugget and a new idea. And another aspect of Shoshin is expert application. And this is talking about we all follow experts, we all seek experts. Some of us feel we're experts, but even experts need to keep learning. And Helen Hayes wrote, "The expert in anything was once a beginner." You got that? Even an expert was a beginner at some point, and they got involved in a long process of practice and perseverance and continual learning. So I want you to think about the experts that you may be turning to for advice or following for direction in life. Are they truly an expert in the field, or are they just a proponent of one style or idea about the subject? You don't want an expert who's just doing the same old stuff day after day, sort of coming from this worked 50 years ago, so it's time tested and proven. You want an expert who's open and encouraging you to stay open to explore different approaches and new ideas, to really understand and find a nugget as they listen every day, not listen to judge or debate. And that really brings us to this Shoshin aspect completely. It's you're having a beginner's mindset to cultivate your mindset, to be planting new ideas that can grow and mature and lead to a harvest of new thoughts and things that benefit you. And I believe you can practice Shoshin in your daily life to find your richness in your experiences, to improve your relationships and interactions, and reduce anxiety simply by approaching the world with this awe and sense of wonder of a beginner. Let me give you one way you could begin practicing Shoshin in something you already do. I'm going to assume that you do have some support group or you meet with friends over coffee and you're kicking things around in some formal or informal setting. Here's a new spin to include Shoshin. Maybe once a week, once a month, whatever fits you. Instead of coming to the support group as just sort of, okay, let's talk about this topic today. I've got a couple of questions. I want someone in the group to come prepared to present a theory or an idea that they have based on something that works for them. And I think this is a key point because even when we look to say, I know this works for me, it gets us to question, is this same old for us? Has it made it to my belief system? Is this a foundation of what I believe in recovery? Or can I see this as just an aspect? So again, present something that you do find works for you and open it up for discussion in the group. Not for the what about this, what about that rebuttal that people are trying to shoot down your idea, but honest questions to see better understanding. Things like, could you please elaborate on that? Or can you give an example so I can understand a little bit better? I hear what you're saying, but I'm not sure what you meant by that idea. So open, looking for true understanding, childlike beginner's mindset. And you could have a group norm that everyone should learn something and share something every time you meet. You should all be seeking that nugget, not looking for a radical new lifestyle to come out of every group, but just a nugget. And finally, I want to encourage you to look to the stars. I think that's a key aspect of Shoshin. To realize, just as we have on the cover of our book of From Ashes to Destiny, that you're painting the stars of your destiny in the sky. The possibilities are endless when we stop looking down on the ashes of everything we destroyed and start looking up to the stars of our destiny. And I want to close with a quote by Shunryu Suzuki, who said, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few." I want to encourage all of you, whether you feel like an expert or not, to grab a hold of a beginner's mindset, grab a hold of Shoshin, and start making it part of the way you walk and the way you think. Thanks for listening to this episode of the A to D from Addict to Disciple podcast. If you were saying that's me as you listen, then it's time now to reach out and join a group. You can message me on the link in this podcast or by email at davidfroma2d@gmail.com or go to my website, www.froma2d.org, and click on the contact page. Keep listening to future podcast episodes, and as always, stay safe and stay resilient.